Trevor Louisy, Managing Director of LUCELEC. Let me just say a pleasant morning to all of you, and thank you for coming down to Cul-de-sac this morning, at least to get first-hand word on what occurred this morning. The island experienced a total electrical system shutdown at approximately 9:04 a.m. this morning. The power outage was caused by a major internal fault at the Cul-de-sac power station. The fault initially tripped 3 of our large generators, and then the remaining generators also tripped, and that resulted in the total system shutdown, meaning that we did not have enough plant capacity to meet the demand that the system was placing on us at the time. After the fault zone was isolated, appropriate checks and inspections commenced, and the process of restoring the system was initiated. Power restoration started about 10:28 a.m. and is being done gradually across the network. At this point, until the fault is identified and rectified, it is not possible to output the full capacity of the generating plant at Cul-de-sac. As such, LUCELEC expects to be able to meet about 60% of the peak demand until the problem is resolved. Some sections of the network are likely to remain without power until the fault has been corrected. I can say, just coming out of the control room, that we have about 55% of the system restored already, and I expect that within the next hour we should have up to about 75%. The sooner, obviously, that we identify and correct the problem, we will be able to restore the entire system. LUCELEC is working to correct this problem as quick as possible and apologizes to its customers for this unplanned outage and for the inconvenience caused. Thank you.
So just to ask you, the areas that would be 75% with coverage, what areas we're talking about geographically?
Well, what we would do in a situation like that, we would select sections of the system right around the island. So on a day like today, we have a protocol where we try and make sure that emergency places like the hospitals, the fire stations, the police stations, government buildings, the airports, these places get priority, followed by the commercial businesses. And then we would start picking up what we would traditionally call the domestic load, meaning our homes where most of us would live.
So some homes will be without power later today?
I don't want to go out on a limb. I'm saying based on the capacity that we have available now to supply the demand on the system, we think we can supply 75% of the demand. The quicker we identify the problem and correct that problem, we will be able to restore the entire system. So right now, the guys are doing some fairly detailed checks on that section of the system that was isolated where that fault occurred, to make sure that if there is a problem, they find that problem, correct it, so that we can bring the rest of the generating capacity back onto the system.
I know that earlier today it was said that both you and some other communities would have been without power today. Does that have to do with anything? Does that have to do with anything?
If that was on a public announcement, that would have been a planned interruption. Right. Not as a result of what happened at the power.
Again, I don't know what the fault line is, I thought maybe when they were trying to shut down the 3, then the whole thing shut down by accident. No. But explain to me what that fault line means and what causes it. What caused it? Did we get that?
Well, we haven't ascertained exactly what caused the problem. You will note that I am here with none of my engineers. All of my engineers are really actively engaged now in trying to identify what caused that specific problem, and they're in the process of doing some checks, some testing, to make sure that even if they don't see anything visually, there's some electrical testing that can be done to ascertain whether anything in there has failed, try and identify what has failed, replace it, correct it, so that we can restore the balance of the system.
There are also reports, and confirm, that's why I want to confirm it here, that some of the equipment is maybe faulty because they're old. Well, how would you respond to that? We don't know, so we're asking.
No, I don't know where you got that from, but that part of the station is part of the newer part of our infrastructure, So I can assure you, from my knowledge of the of what's in there, that it's not due to age of equipment.
Right. Being on the streets, it's a bit chaotic for many people who have come to the offices and stuff like that. There are many are irate and that sort of thing. They're calling for electricity services not being monopolized. Mm-hmm. Your response?
There is a process that is taking place right now, where the business is being opened up a bit more. I think that is you will hear arguments on both sides as to whether it should remain a full monopoly, partial or total. I really leave that to the authorities to decide. We are going to continue to focus as best as possible to continuing to provide a reliable and efficient service, to the best of our ability.
Is there any link between today's blackout and the rumored action that has been scheduled to be taken by LUCELEC workers?
I'm not sure what rumored action you're talking about.
Sick-outs and strike actions with regards to the latest unrest that's been taking place.
I see no correlation between the two. From what I've seen, I've been across there. I've spoken to the senior engineers. I've spoken to the chief engineer, who's the engineer who has overall responsibility for the system. And from the information that I have received thus far, I think that is the furthest thing from our minds.
So are all hands on deck with this crisis?
As you can see, I'm the only one in here with Mr. Joseph. Everybody who has some sort of capability or experience in terms of handling a situation like that are actively involved in the investigations, likely corrective work, and the ongoing restoration of the system.
With the grade 1 workers are also on board?
There are grade 1 workers who form part of the staff at the power station. They would be involved in the investigative work. The other grade 1 workers that are part of T&D would be out in the field doing some of their normal activities. I can tell you that while we were in the control room, there was a report of an incident at Union Substation, and the guys have gone out there, and it would involve some of the grade 1 staff from the T&D department.
Right. With what's happening here today, it's far-reaching. Gas stations not working. Wasco saying that they might have to also alter their operations. And you're in charge of LUCELEC. LUCELEC seems to be running the entire island. If it's down, then the country's down. How do you feel about that pressure and productivity? The country's productivity relies on you and the services of LUCELEC. Is that overwhelming?
It's a question that I've been asked a number of times over the years, and it can be challenging at times. But I think you just have to continue to persevere, primarily because of the responsibility that has been placed on your shoulders, and you are aware of the far-reaching implications if power supplies are not available. So the same exuberance, determination, commitment that we display, for example, after the passage of a storm or hurricane, I can tell you this morning that within 15 minutes, half an hour of the incident, there were staff who were not at work today, supposedly off for because of maybe the way the shift works. They were here. I was in a meeting. I literally had to drop what I was doing in the meeting and find myself down here to give whatever support that I can give to the engineers who are involved, not only the engineers, but the other supervisory staff and line staff who are involved in trying to identify and correct the problem.
Will customers be getting any special treatment for this happening? Because they've been calling for it. I've been outside your offices just asking people, and they're like, maybe they should get a discount. That
is perhaps not in the discount. What I can say is that there's some legislative amendments that are being considered, And as part of that, of these amendments, there will be service standards that will be put in place, and it will be expected that LUCELEC will have to, at a minimum, achieve these service standards. And if we don't achieve these service standards, there may be repercussions as to whether it's a reprimand or whether it's a fine. I'm not too sure at this specific point in time.
How soon can we look to everything being completely under control? Do we have to wait a few weeks, a week?
When you say everything being under control?
100% capacity.
I have every confidence that that will happen before the day's end. Before the day's ended. We have very competent employees in all aspects of our operations, and I'm fairly sure that by the time I next sit down with the chief engineer, maybe in about half an hour, because I don't want to distract him from coordinating the whole restoration exercise, that we would be a lot further ahead than where we are right now.
Final question. When you were at a meeting earlier, who were part of the meeting? Your technical people? I just want some designations.
Well, as soon as I came down here, I first got a call from my chief engineer, and that's what I would expect him to do, inform me of the situation, and I indicated to him that I would be down at cul-de-sac as soon as possible. I also got a call from Mr. Joseph, because I know Mr. Joseph would want to prepare a press release to go out, and I told him that I would be down at cul-de-sac shortly. So I've been down here. I've had about 3, I will call them interactions with my chief engineer, not sitting down at a desk and having a formal meeting, but we would step aside and he would give me an update on progress to date, so that I could liaise with Mr. Joseph in terms of whatever statement we are going to put out there. I think you may hear from the chief engineer a little later when things have settled down, and he can perhaps better put the situation into proper context.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.